Hello, my friends. Today we're going to think about another signpost that we can think of when we read our books. We can think of this for any fiction book that we're reading, but I'm going to show it to you through the Tale of Despereaux, which I've been reading aloud to you. The last signpost we talked about was Words of the Wiser, where a character or narrator talks directly to the reader or tells the main character something that is a lesson. And we pay attention when that happens because it often has to do with the theme of the book. Another signpost that we can think about when we're reading is something called again and again. Again and again is when a word, phrase, object, or situation is mentioned repeatedly, either by the character or in the setting itself. And we think about why does this show up again and again, and it usually teaches us about the theme, symbolism, and foreshadowing. So let's just think about what does that mean. The theme of a book is, what is the book really about? What lesson about life does the author want you to know? Symbolism is when one object represents something else. So in our book, The Tale of Despereaux, something that we see again and again is that the author talks about light and darkness again and again. So we might think, what is the light representing and what does the dark represent? We can go back to that in a little bit. And one other thing that sometimes we see when an author mentions something again and again is foreshadowing, which would be giving you little clues about something that's to come. So in the Tale of Despereaux, I'm not sure if you picked up on it yet, but I do want to call your attention to the idea that the author mentions light and dark again and again. Okay, so as I continue reading the book to you and you're listening, listen for mentions of light and dark. Okay, you will hear it mentioned again and again. And we want to think about, how does she talk about the light and how does she talk about the dark? What lessons does she want us to learn about life and thinking about light and dark? So we don't really know yet, but we can be thinking about that. What does she mean? Why do we keep hearing so much about light and dark? So what I did was I went through the book up to where we are at from Rasguero's perspective and wrote down some of the lines I found that related to light and dark. Even before the big book begins, there's that little part where the narrator is talking to the reader and says, the world is dark and light is precious. So right away, we're thinking she's talking about light being precious. Precious is usually something that is very dear and something you want to protect, and it's important and valuable. So right there, we get a sense of what she thinks light is, right? Light's a good thing. Light's precious. It's important. And the world is dark. So right away, that's something for us to think about. Okay, and then there's more as the book goes on. On page 13, the light was shining onto the ceiling in an oval of brilliance, and he was smiling up at the sight. That's when Despereaux was first born, and he was staring up at the light. On page 20, but Despereaux wasn't listening to Furlough. He was staring at the light pouring in through the stained glass windows of the castle. So we notice Despereaux is always aware of the light, and he likes the light. He's interested in the light. Page 21, Despereaux's sister Merlot took him into the castle library, where light came streaming in through tall, high windows and landed on the floor in bright yellow patches. That makes me feel like the light is a very cheerful, beautiful sight, right? Light's described in those ways. Page 26. He wandered through the rooms of the castle, staring dreamily at the light streaming in through the stained glass windows. Again, the light is really making him feel like he's in a dream. It's very positively described. Page 68, they moved through warm patches of sunlight and dark pools of shade. Right there, you see the contrast. Warm patches of sunlight makes you feel that nice, warm, cozy feeling. Dark pools of shade leaves you with a different feeling, right? Page 73, and it was so dark. Despereaux had never encountered darkness so awful, so all-encompassing. The darkness had a physical presence, as if it were a being all its own. You can see the difference, how darkness is described. It's awful. It covers everything. It's all-encompassing. It's almost like a person. that it's not leaving you with a good feeling. Page 77, here in the dungeon, you are in the treacherous, dark heart of the world. Treacherous is a very bad word, right? It's if you're treacherous, it's like you betrayed somebody. So you can see the difference in how dark and light is described so far. And you notice it comes up a lot. Page 81, stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. That line is repeated by Gregory, the jailer. But remember, in the beginning, we hear that line too. So this is a really important line and really important for us to think about, that stories are light and light is precious. So stories are now connected to light, and light is very valuable and important, and the world itself is dark. Page 85. Reader, do you know the definition of the word chiaroscuro? If you look in your dictionary, you will find that it means the arrangement of light and dark, darkness and light together. That's interesting. The character chiaroscuro, Oscuro the rat, his name actually means light and dark together. Right? What does light and dark represent in this book? What would that represent in chiaroscuro as a character? Page 86. Gregory lit a match with the nail of his thumb and then held a brilliant flame right in Oscuro's face. Page 88. From that moment forward, Oscuro showed an abnormal, inordinate interest in the illumination of all sorts. He was always, in the darkness of the dungeon, on the lookout for light, the smallest glimmer, the tiniest shimmer. Again, Oscuro, who is a rat and meant to live in the dungeon, is obsessed with the light. Again, his name means light and darkness together. So it's an interesting fact about that character. A few more quotes where you can see how this is coming up again and again. Light and dark, light and dark. Kate D. Camillo, the author, is putting images of light and dark all throughout this book. Page 92. But as he stared up at the man, the door to the dungeon was suddenly flung open, and a thick and brilliant shaft of afternoon light cut into the dark of the dungeon. Page 103. Imagine, if you will, having spent the whole of your life in a dungeon, imagine that late one spring day you step out of the dark and into a world of bright windows and polished floors, winking copper pots, shining suits of armor, and tapestries sewn in gold. Page 104. And the little princess, how lovely she was, how much like light itself. Her gown was covered in sequins that winked and glimmered at the rat. Okay, so you can see throughout the book, I've pulled out some of the sentences, and I'm sure there's more I missed, but light and dark are constantly being mentioned again and again. Okay, and so I wrote down some of the ways Katie Camillo has described light in those quotes that I just read to you. And you can see, if you look at all these words, what feeling does light give you? Bedazzled, brilliant, glimmer, precious, brilliance, shimmer, lovely, warm, right? I think light gives me a very happy, positive feeling in this book. Light seems very special and beautiful and valuable, right? And let's see how dark is described. So less descriptions of dark from what I've seen, but the way I've found it described in the book, descended into the darkness. Descended as you go down, right? You walk downstairs, you descend. So descend into the darkness sounds not good to me, like you're going into something bad. Awful, black hole, treacherous, all-encompassing, dark pool. Okay, so we can clearly see that in this book, light is described as very special, beautiful, important, valuable, and dark is not where you want to be, right? Dark is dangerous and hurtful and bad. Okay, so as you're listening to the Tale of Despereaux, be on the lookout for mentions of light and dark. Think of her word choice, the word choice the author uses when talking about light, and the word she uses when talking about dark, just like we just did on those two slides. What can light and dark have to do with the lessons in the story? And here's this picture of Oscuro on the chandelier at the party. And Oscuro himself is a character that actually means light and dark, his name, Chiaroscuro. What does light and dark have to do with the lessons? What might light and dark be symbolizing? Okay, and I'm going to say, to look back at these pictures, I think light is symbolizing everything good in the world, goodness, beauty, love. And I think darkness is representing or symbolized as evil, bad, hurtfulness, bad choices, meanness, right? So if light is good and dark is bad, and Mascuro's name means arrangement of dark and bad, of light and dark, good and bad. What does that mean in a character? Can a character be good and bad? Can people be good and bad? Right? So I'd like you to think about all these things as you're listening to our book. Okay, don't forget words of the wiser. Don't forget when the narrator stops and talks to us, or if another character says something that feels like it's wise. Pay attention to that too. That's another signpost. But our signpost today is again and again. And I think this one is especially important in the Tale of Despereaux because again and again you will see light and dark mentioned. And it's something that we have to pay attention to and thinking about what is this book really about.